on my first step ever. I am beaming with happiness because today is one of the most exciting episodes of my first step ever for a lot of people out there, especially women. If you're someone who's trying to work on your own side business, or you already in a business and wanting to expand, or you're someone in a job who's wondering how can I pitch myself well because I know my abilities and strengths but they don't see it, how can I do that? And it all comes down to sales. But why is sales such a weird, it has a weird connotation. Sales is taken in a negative way. Sales is like, oh my God, this is a dirty word. Oh my God, sales. Women, maybe it's a challenging thing. But you know what? Breaking the barriers from many, many years, we have a veteran in this field, the top 1% influencer globally in the sales industry on the show. I'm so honored to have Elinor Stutz all the way from the US. Hi, Elinor. Welcome on my first step ever.
Hi, Shani. It's a treat to be your guest today. Thank you so much.
I think it's my honor to have a global personality, a global influencer on this show today, and especially in a field which is so challenging to break into for females. And I can say that there's no controversy out there about this. Everyone knows that this is a very challenging field. That's what people think about it. But I think we are here today with you to break that barrier for a lot of people in the mindset. So I like to give a sneak peek about Elinor Stutz for a lot of people who already know her and for a lot of people who are about to get to know her. Okay, so Elinor Stutz broke through barriers long before doing was popular. Against all odds, she defied the theme "Women Can't Sell" to become the top producer at every company she worked for, ignoring attempts to get her to quit. Now, that must have been challenging. Now, she has had a really, let's say, life changing, life altering experience that we are probably maybe going to delve a deep into and see how that kind of changed her life. So, 11 years later, she found herself in a stretcher in an incredibly broken neck. Now, there were some things in her story that we will get into and learn more about it. But before we reach there, let me tell you that she is the CEO of Smooth Sales. Stutz adapted the motto "Believe, Become, Empower." Believe in yourself, become the person you envision, empower your audience to do the same. Now, my friends, we have a glimpse of what Eleanor started off with, in what industry, what really happened in her life, and now what she's doing. But this what is what we are going to cover, that how she came about to be the person that she is, how she took her first steps and become the amazing path breaking person in the sales industry. So, Eleanor, my first question to you is, please take us through your childhood days, the kind of mindset of the people that you were growing around.
The mindset of the people around me was that I was stupid. I didn't deserve to be a part of anything. So I was pretty much on my own. And I would just watch older people, and the ones I admired, I kind of followed them. As it turns out, genetically, I'm just like my dad. My mother used to say that all the time. So one story, I realized it was the beginning of my sales personality. I was outside doing something, I don't know what, I was sitting on the ground, and my mother said, "Don't do that." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "You're not supposed to ask why, you're supposed to follow parents' directions." I said, "But if I know why, I won't continue doing it. I'll listen. But if I don't understand the why, I might continue doing it for the rest of my life." And she said, "Where did you come from?" So, but why is the best question in the sales environment. Every step of the way in our childhood directs us toward the person we become and the career we take. I always asked questions of everybody.
It's very exciting to hear from you. I think, first of all, I love your energy, Eleanor. And also, I think the kind of mindset that you had from the very beginning, especially, while growing up, when you do have that awareness and the power to question things from the angle of curiosity. I think that is the best power that you can have while you're growing up. And it's definitely challenging to grow up in an environment where you are made feel that your opinions or what you do doesn't really matter, and that you have to abide by certain ways of living, a certain ways of life. It is definitely very suffocating, mentally suffocating, for especially for people who are there to make their own mark, who want to live the life on their own terms. And more than that, they want to discover the life on their own terms. So, Eleanor, from that, environment, when you grew out of that environment, you came to your university. Can you please take us through how it was for you when you were doing your higher studies, the kind of people that you were surrounded with? Were you becoming a different person around that time? Because it's a very fragile time.
So I was never a student. I was a student of life. I'm not the academic student. And I never liked school because it was all about memorization, and that's not me. I have a creative mind and I like to think and bring up new ideas. So the teachers never appreciated me because I'd ask questions they couldn't answer. Anyway, so by the time I got to college, I decided to read through the catalog because I wanted to get out in 4 years. Wasn't going to spend a day longer. And what caught my attention was anthropology and archaeology. And everybody said, "How are you going to use that?" I said, "I don't care. I'm not planning to use it. What I'm going to do is get my degree in 4 years and then go start a career I want." And they all looked at me like I was out of my mind. But as it turned out, it was fascinating. I loved it. In fact, this is a funny story. One of the courses was to take a linguistics class that was very, very difficult. On the other hand, I could take Quechua, language of the Incas. And I thought, oh, that'd be fun. It's so different. And they had somebody who spoke Spanish that translated all the verbiage. And I had known Spanish, thankfully, because I was an exchange student in Mexico at age 17 one summer. So I took Quechua, loved it. But this is the funny part about business. Many years later, I had promised myself to memorize one sentence so it would be for naught. So many years later, I'm in San Francisco and I meet somebody from the SBA, and she told me up front she could not give me any leads. Don't ask for any. I said, okay, that's fine. And then out of the blue, she happened to mention she was from Peru. And I looked her straight in the eye and I said to her, "My tata rinkai kukuyan." It means, where does this narrow road lead to? And she almost fell off her chair. And she said, "Forget what I said. Here are all the leads I can give you."
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, so you just never know who you're going to meet. But I met my goal in 4 years, and the very last year, I met somebody who I became friends with. And the only job a woman could get in my day was to be a secretary. And I said, I didn't go through 4 years of college at a university to be a secretary. So she said to me, "Let's start a party giving business." I said, "Well, that sounds like fun." So we knew nothing about business. You'll never believe what happened. First party was at Universal Studios, which is a big to-do in California. We gave a party for, it was KFWB rock and roll station at the time, the biggest rock and roll station. And it was
Wow.
a huge success, and everything we did was featured in the local newspaper, the LA Times, and we wound up on the cover of Mademoiselle magazine, not knowing anything about business. But we had the time of our lives, and then the market crashed, and that was the end of it. Had to start all over again.
Wow. First of all, I'd like to say this is such an exciting story. And I mean, this is what people say, when you're having fun, you really bring your A game to the front, and you just make the best out of whatever that you have within you. And what an amazing, way to kind of, I like you are extremely daring. You have that courage in you. I can see that as you go about, sharing about your life, about the way that you approached people and the way you knew what you wanted, or you know and you knew how to kind of assert that in a very nice way, that that you can tell people, no, I know what my worth is, what my value is, or I know what I want to, and this is what I want to have. And wow, that was such a great experience. So for our listeners who are listening, I mean, who are with us right now, whatever phase of life that you are in, maybe you are just about to start your uni, or maybe you're even trying to start a second innings of your life, this is something I would like to pause over here and highlight, that it's okay if you probably don't know what you really want or what you're into, but I think having that courage of going ahead and doing something that you at least are interested in, or you have a bit of inclination towards, it's always worth experimenting at that point in time. And most important thing is, I think, Eleanor, you never expected something what really happened. You just went out doing what you sort of wanted to, or you were like, oh, let's experiment, and you did that with utmost conviction and utmost courage that you had, and it turned out so well. So my friends who are listening to us, this is an amazing takeaway. Have the conviction in what you're doing at that point in time, in the present moment, and have fun. So Eleanor,
Fun is my middle name.
I can definitely say that and see that. So, Eleanor, that then comes another chapter of your life, I see, where you said the market crash. You had to start all over again. Please take us through your 20s. If you can kind of, summarize your, takeaways from your 20s of how you rebuilt yourself for with your job, or probably how did you come into sales?
Here's something I don't usually share this. Everybody used to call me stupid. So instead of being out socially, I came to learn that our worst experiences are our gifts in disguise. So instead of talking to people who didn't like me or believe in me, I talk to my reflection in the mirror, and I watch my facial expressions, my body language, my hand gestures, and I talk to myself. I'd weigh ideas, pro and con. It was all the perfect training ground for sales. I didn't know it, but it really trained me on that. And then years later, when I got married in my mid 20s, my husband said to me on a date, I couldn't believe it. Everybody was calling me stupid. He said, "You're the smartest woman I ever met."
Oh, wow.
He said, "You must have met an awful lot of really dumb women." What? Because I was convinced I was stupid, because not one person told me I was smart, but he did. And then a number of years later, after we started a family, he said to me, "I know what you should do for a career." And my back was to him, and he said, "You have the personality of a salesperson." I was astounded. I got up, looked him in the eye, and I quietly asked, "Is that a compliment or an insult?" Because I had a really bad impression of salespeople, that they kept hammering people to get the sale. That's not me. So at any rate, turned out he was right. And I had the first job, I had to corner the director into hiring me. And
Wow.
I hated being in the sales arena, but I loved being with clientele. I made friends with everybody I met. They said I was the nicest person they ever met. And they refused to train me in the corporate arena because they figured I was a stupid female and it would be a waste of money. So that was a green light for me to do things my way. And so, as I said, I made friends with everybody, even the guard with guns. And I just started sharing stories with them, asked them how they got their job, because I wanted to do better than the job I currently had. And we just started getting into these fun conversations that led to travel and laughter and all kinds of things. Nothing about sales. Finally, one person, the first job, kept asking me to come back, and then she finally said after the fifth visit, "My CEO's all over my case. I have to buy from you. What are you selling?"
Eleanor, wow, I would say that, That is really, really exciting to hear that, your husband spotted that thing in you. In fact, it was always in you, but I think he was the first person who verbalized that for you. And coming from someone who you really, believe in, trust in, I think it did wonders as well. And it's another very important learning for everyone who's listening to us, that a lot of people will call you names, a lot of people will say a lot of things about you, and over the period of time, when something is hammered to us consistently, it becomes a reality, because we start thinking that way. And that happens with all of us. It has even happened with me, I can definitely say that. So
Wow.
yeah, and I'm happy that you did find someone who could point that out for you, and maybe change that point of view for you, maybe after a couple of years, that yes, you are good at it. And I think it also comes from the fact that we see sales in a very different light, exactly how you had pictured it, exactly even how I had pictured it while growing up, because that's how the media put things out there. But that's how you see things in the movies, in the publications. The representation is very important, and that's why I'm so excited that you're here today representing women in sales, and that to someone who is the top 1% influencer globally in this particular industry. And it's also the stats also say that women are better salesperson than men. Now that's very controversial, but that's stats. um, can kind of go and Google, I would say. But we're not over here to kind of make a debate, but we're over here to show people through your story that what conviction, building conviction in oneself and taking actions towards what you really want, can really help you achieve what you want. So Eleanor, please, I think this is the right point to kind of ask you that what was the initial barrier that you faced? Which was the biggest barrier for you when you were starting off in the sales industry? And how did you overcome that? Because I think a lot of listeners, especially women who are hearing this, it will be very helpful for them to, imbibe that kind of thought process from you, to take that mindset, that how did you overcome that?
That first job, I mean, it was disgraceful. And it became, the games got worse. The fourth month, I knew nothing about the copiers I was supposed to be selling, nothing. And because they wouldn't train me. And so I became the top producer anyway. And the men were really upset, especially management. So they decided, in honor of my numbers, you'll never guess what they decided. This was the worst experience. They would treat the men, not me, to a lunch at a lingerie fashion show at a motel on the worst side of town. I said, wait a minute, you're talking about my numbers. We can go to a movie, we can go out for lunch, dinner, whatever you like. We can even go to a ball game. No, I promised the men the lingerie fashion show. I didn't know what to do. My husband said, I'm not touching this one. My car, honest to goodness, my car drove me to that motel. And there was a long banquet table where they were sitting for lunch, and the end seat was vacant. And I sat down, and they were stunned I showed up, and I was directly across from the director. And instead of letting them enjoy the show, I started shouting out copier questions so they would be distracted. And then some ugly questions came my way. And what I had learned when I was young was to ask questions. I mentioned that. And that's what helped me in every step of my career. So one man, salesman, said to me, I bet you don't wear outfits like that, do you? So I said, you know what? I'll answer that. But first, you need to tell me if you wear tops, bottoms, or nothing at all. And he was just stunned. Didn't say another word. And when it was all over, I shouted out to the director. I said, so are you going to go to their room afterward to see the rest of the outfits that they own and want to display? So he turned beet red. By the time we got back to the office, he said he would never, ever do anything like that again. But you have to stand your ground, ask questions, get the other person to either stumble on their words or give you a reasonable answer. Either way, the questions are the differentiator for getting what you want.
This is a very big learning coming right from Eleanor's experience. And that was such a brave move, I would say. More than that, I think that's the confidence in yourself and in your own ability that what you're doing is of value, and also that what you're asking and contributing also makes sense. And that's it's incredible, that you're being so candid and you're being so open and sharing all these things, because it actually helps other people, other listeners who are here. They might be in similar or maybe a bit different situation. They might be facing, some sort of bullying or some sort of, other kind of situations where they feel a bit inferior. They're made to feel so, even though they are quite capable. And by you sharing your own experience and telling us that how one can, really build the mindset to believe in oneself and keep going on, really helps a lot of our listeners. So, Eleanor, from here we see that you've always been this, quirky person, I would say, brave, courageous. I'm sure you've had to kind of face a lot of challenges in the career, and but we see that you really, drove to the top of the company, being the producer that you are. I like to ask you. I see that there was a situation in your life which was extremely emotionally, mentally, and physically challenging for you to, make sense of life. Is that something that you like to share with our listeners? And
My reward for being a top producer, just so your audience knows, I was an embarrassment to the men, and every year my hard-earned accounts were given to the men, and my quota tripled for the following year. There was no way I could make a tripled quota. And so every year I had to go get a new job. It got very frustrating, but I became an expert on how to sell yourself on interviews. So that part was good, but it was really annoying. At any rate, after the 11th job, I decided I'm going to take one day off for me. I had never done that. And I was at a red light about to go to a shopping center. And out of the blue, a young mother behind me was talking to her child in the back seat, not realizing that the light was red, and slammed full force into my car. I told the doctor I could feel my brain swaying around in my head, and of course, he didn't believe me. But I was in terrible pain for 10 years. And I say, thankfully, one night I was a passenger in a car on a rainy night, and the car made a left turn and slowly skidded into a lamppost. But given the condition my neck already was in, I said, I think you better call an ambulance. Now, here's an important message for the audience. Mindset is everything, and it took me years to understand what that means. I learned it from The Secret, the book. So, at any rate, when I was in the back of the ambulance, I thought to myself, oh my God, that was my last journey with my mother. Is this my last ride too? And I caught myself. I said, no, Elinor, you're going to the best hospital and you're going to be well. And I gave myself a pep talk. And I think that was step number one. But then I was in the hallway on a stretcher, I guess, or a gurney, and I had a near-death experience. My family was being consulted, and all of a sudden I heard them burst into sobs because what they were told was not good. But at the same time, a brilliant gold light encased my entire body, which I will never, ever forget. This was 22 years ago, and it's still in my mind. And then I had two visions come to me. One, I was to become a public speaker, and I said in my mind, yes, that's what I always wanted to do. That faded away, and a second appeared, and was in the form of a life report card. On the left-hand side, I had very high life marks, but on the right-hand side, it was completely blank, entitled Community Service, which was embarrassing. So in the moment, I said, I promise to begin giving back to communities any way I may. But being the natural salesperson, I said, but to give my best, I have to be able to walk out of this hospital on my own. And in the open air, I saw a blink of a gold light. So I knew I'd be well. To me, that was a signal. And after that vision faded, the gold light encased over my body slowly dissipated. And that night, somebody came. Nobody knew who he was. The whole story's odd, but nobody knew who he was. He claimed to be a brain surgeon and asked if he could do an experiment on me. I said, yes, that's what I always needed. Have a brain surgeon do an experiment on me. So it wasn't with the brain at all. It was with my neck. Usually they seriously hammer a metal brace into your forehead, and then an attachment goes back across your spine. And they put 5 pounds of weight. That did nothing. So what he did was he attached 50 pounds of weight. And the second he did it, I could feel my spine straighten out. He wheeled me back. I was at Stanford Hospital, a teaching hospital, and he told the students, and I watch facial expressions, their eyes almost popped out of their head when they were heard what he had done, because it had never been done before. So the next morning, I'm heavily medicated. The surgeon says to me, Mrs. Stutz, when you wake up, most likely you'll be paralyzed. And given what happened the night before, I wasn't going to allow that to sit. And the word most likely said to me he didn't expect me to survive. And I had negotiated a good outcome. So I said, with every ounce of energy left in me, doctor, when I wake up, I fully expect to be well. And he jumped backwards before cutting me open. And hours later, he's standing over me. He said, there's no rhyme or reason for what happened, but you will walk out of this hospital in 4 days on your own. And the entire staff on duty came to see me and called me the walking miracle. It took me years, literally, to iron out everything that occurred that night. A few years later, we were in Sonoma County, the wine country, and I was invited to a birthday party of one person I knew. I didn't know anyone else. And she said, be an opportunity for you to meet people. I said, great, I appreciate it. So I go in, nobody would talk to me. And then out of the blue, this Asian lady comes over to me and says, would you mind having a conversation with me? I said, no, not at all. She said, sit down. And the next thing she said, you Americans are so dumb. You have no idea after a severe accident that your molecules try to heal your body and they bang into each other with ferocious speed, and that's what causes the gold light over your body. I almost passed out. How on earth did she know? And then she left. So the next morning, I called the birthday girl and said, who was that lady? I forgot to get her business card. I'm the business person. She told me something. I need to find out more information. And she said, Elinor, no idea who she is, why she was there. Never saw her before and probably never will again. But I took
Wow.
the explanation.
I think this is nothing short of definitely a miracle. And I can never imagine that what you have gone through. But what you have come out with is something that we would love to, process and also kind of, imbibe those qualities. Not qualities, I think maybe the mindset that you mentioned. It is so important for us, for someone to go through the most life threatening situation that you were in and to have that positive talk, that mindset that this is how I will be or this is how I want to be. This is so powerful, and we have seen that in your life journey, that what you've just shared with us. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I mean, it's been a couple of years since that incident happened, and I'm sure the recovering time must have been very challenging for you, and there's lots that must have gone through emotionally and mentally. But what is really important is that your amazing energy, you are full of life. It's also a learning for a lot of us that if we have something within us, something which we feel is not really good for us or something that is really good for us, it is for us to work on something that can benefit us in the long run and also people around us. So we are born with certain qualities, but it is definitely our responsibility that to build on that particular thing so we can become the best version in that capacity. Thank you so much, Eleanor, for being on this podcast, taking us through your amazing journey. There were so many first steps that you've taken, and especially this particular part of your story. I think it's going to take me a while to digest because it's a very unimaginable situation that you were in, and but I'm happy that we have you to kind of show us that how important life is, and more than that, what is more important is the mindset to live the life that we have. So eh,
Exactly. I wanted to say never ever give up. Keep going. You will find a way. And like I said, our worst challenges are our gifts in disguise. I became a far better person and I became driven by community service. I never forgot my promise.
yes, and that we can say while you are working through day in day out with your own venture, Smooth Sale, where you say nice girls do get the sale. So that is amazing. And Eleanor, before we wrap up this episode, I really like to kind of you to touch upon your venture right now, that the way that you're helping girls out there smash those sales. Please talk us through the Smooth Sale blog that you kind of tried, which is also the top rated sales blog. And we know that in 2021, Kurt declares such to be the top 1% influencer. You have also been on the CEO Magazine that has declared you as one of the brightest sales minds to follow on Twitter. Now, we have such an incredible personality. We cannot let you go without telling a bit about Smooth Sale, that what you do over there and how you're helping impacting women out there.
Thank you so much. The smooth sale interpretation is it refers to earning, not getting, but earning a returning and referring clientele. Then you never have to worry about quota where the next sale will come from. It's just all happens automatically. And it just makes it a fun process because you're helping people. And so I'll tell your audience, I was invited to events in DC, several of them, and nobody would talk to me because I'm an older woman. So I thought, the heck with this. I saw somebody writing a blog. It was new at the time, and I thought I would try it, and I call it the Smooth Sale blog. And initially, I wrote all of them, and it was just stories from my past. But over time, part of the community service became asking leaders in varying fields to submit their experiences or their best insights for younger readers. And through the years, it became more popular, and now it often links to Fortune 100 and 500 companies. So I'm very proud of not knowing what I was doing to get to this point. And I'm meeting wonderful people globally. I start because I didn't fit in where I grew up. I began travel at age 16 and I've never stopped. I've been to close to 50 countries now. And the idea of social media just spoke to my heart, and I love meeting people from everywhere and learning their perspectives. And that's the whole cue. When you eliminate people because of race, religion, whatever, you limit your results. When you have an open door and you're inclusive in every way possible, then the whole world opens up to you and opportunities come that you never saw before. So I just don't get that whole other thing.
Well, let me tell you, Eleanor, that my first step ever is privileged to have you in your full essence. You are an amazing, amazing woman. We love to see you. We love to listen to you. This has been an incredible pleasure to have you over here, because I know that we really, really want people who can really show us that the way they have made their own path and did things that was once believed to be impossible to be done, and you have done that in many ways. For everyone who's listening to us, if you would love to kind of learn more about sales, now again that we know. And I think one thing that I've learned from Eleanor, that she mentioned something, that she never spoke about sales when she was working in that company. She talked about people. She was inquisitive about their own stories, and about kind of, building a relationship, a genuine relationship with people. That's where things lie, because once you have that trust within two people, business, I think, follows smoothly. And I think that is what Eleanor just mentioned, that to earn that recurring client, it's not about getting a sale, but the only way you can earn a recurring client is to when you have actually built that trust, that this is the person, this is the ethics, and this is who I want to probably keep working with. So thank you so much, Eleanor, for being on my first step ever. Before we take your leave, I like to quickly ask you if you can leave our listeners with top 3 lessons in sales that can help them really burst through and go to the next level.
Listen carefully. Ask a question up front, such as, why did you take the time to speak with me today? Let them do the talking up front, and then you have plenty of questions to ask for further insight. And when somebody says something, if it reminds you of an experience, connect the dots. Enjoy the laughter together. It doesn't have to be serious, but it has to be conversational and show that you care about the other person, and your purpose is to improve their experience, whatever they may be doing. And it's just as simple as that. It's about building relationships, as you mentioned.
Amazing. So that was Eleanor, the amazing Wonder Woman, the walking miracle, and much more. Thank you, Eleanor, for being on my first step ever. Could you please leave our listeners with a quote or a saying that you really resonate with?
The most important one to me is, we only have one life to live. Our job is to live it without regret.
Wow, that is the best way to wrap up this episode. So, everyone who is so glued to the episode till now, I'm going to leave a link for Eleanor's LinkedIn page or blogs, anything that you would like to follow. As I always say to my listeners, start believing in yourself and keep believing in yourself. Until we meet you next time.